Okay, welcome. It's Tuesday, 4 October, the year of our Lord 2022, and we're going to start on one of the issues that for a lot of people has kind of come out of nowhere, but I can tell you in talking to folks throughout the country, and particularly in these battleground congressional districts and battleground states, has become a top issue. Really has upset people a lot. I want to go to Libby Emmons of Post Millennials, done so much great work on many different topics. Libby, you've got a story up, and I want you to. We've got the lawyer for the family. I want you to just walk through what your story is, because it's pretty shocking. So give us the highlights of what it is before we get Mike Dwan, the lawyer, to talk about this specific situation.
A father here in New York State came to me with a really disturbing story about how courts and a hospital that he had taken his child to were attempting to launch his child onto the path of medicalized gender transition. This became a huge issue between himself and his wife. Eventually, his wife filed for divorce, but he's still working really hard to retain partial custody and to make sure that his child doesn't end up on puberty-blocking drugs. They had taken the child to Golisano Children's Hospital in Rochester. This had been recommended that they attend the gender clinic, and a nurse practitioner there had recommended puberty-blocking drugs and had said that they are 100% reversible. This has been the going line. He looked into it, got a sense that perhaps this was not accurate, and is retained counsel and launched a fundraiser for the legal fees just to save his child and save the ability for the child to grow up into an adult without sterilization or drugs.
Okay, I get some questions about that, about nurse practitioners making these kind of definitive calls, but I want to go back. This little girl started off as, because here's, I think, what's confusing about the story. If you read it, it's clear, but I think that in explaining it, the little girl started off in beauty pageants. She started off as very, what did you say, girly girl. And then went through something changed. He noticed that his daughter was kind of a tomboy, but he didn't think anything about it because a lot of girls in that kind of age group become tomboys and, like playing baseball, doing things like that. But then he found out something darker was happening. Walk us through, how did this go from from not just a little girl playing soccer or, playing with her friends, but really the beauty pageant, which is probably the most girly girl of things young girls can do, to a situation where not just was a tomboy, but had actually decided, or somebody decided for her or put in her mind that she was a boy.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you brought that up. So the child did begin with an interest in beauty pageants. The father told me that it was his daughter's dream to be in beauty pageants, that she was very girly and interested in these kinds of things when she was about 6 or 7 years old. And then she started asking questions about growing up, and he explained that her mother was very graphic about what happens to girls as they grow up, what happens on the process to womanhood, expressing that menstruation was going to be rather tragic and terrible, expressing that developing breasts was going to be difficult and unpleasant. And the daughter apparently was very disturbed by these ideas that this is what could happen to her body, and determined that she didn't want to grow up, just like, any Peter Pan decides that they don't want to have to attend adulthood. Which is, of course, the natural process. So what happened after that was that the daughter had expressed these ideas to the mother. The mother kept them apparently from the father, and he wasn't aware of them for a while. And then the next thing he knows, the school is saying that we're going to do social transition. The mother is on board with social transition, and the father signed off on the documents to keep the peace, as he said, to keep things comfortable for his child, who then started the next year of school with a new name and with new pronouns, only for him to discover that.
Okay, hold on. But let's go through the process when you say, just for the audience, because a lot of this nomenclature is very new to people. When you say the school came up and she was going to social transition, I mean, people go, what are you talking about? I mean, a little girl is in school. what grade was she in? And then they're having meetings about the school agrees that she's going to social transition. What is specifically is that, and how does it derive that a public school gets to be part of the decision making process?
Well, I will say that, yeah, I am steeped in this and that we cover this a lot. So I do tend to just jump right into the nomenclature. Social transition is when you uh, are changing the way that you present socially from one uh, set of traditional sex stereotypes to another. So a little girl would go from, you know, it's kind of weird to think about it, but you'd go from wearing dresses perhaps to wearing pants. But little girls always wear pants. So you'd go from, a little boy would go from wearing pants to dresses. You'd change the way that you are presenting. You would ask people to call you a boy. You would ask people to use different pronouns. And in younger grades, of course, this is parents doing this. And pediatricians, mental health professionals who are engaged in this kind of work, gender transition of young people, do insist that parents need to be the activists for their children at schools, to say to schools, hey, Sally is going to be Billy now. We need you to call Sally by he and her, he and him pronouns. Which is interesting because that happens even when Sally is not around. We need the child to now have access to cross-sex, opposite-sex bathrooms or opposite-sex locker rooms, opposite-sex sports teams, things like this. And typically parents will be instructed by mental health professionals to address the schools and to tell the schools that this is what they want. There are other cases where a child will come to the school and say, I would like to socially transition, perhaps if they can use that language, or they would come into school and say, I'm Sally, but really now I'd like to be Billy, and I would like you to call me that. And there are.
But hang on, but this is such a fundamentally huge change. I mean, these schools, who actually makes these or helps? I mean, I don't even know how you start a decision-making process. I mean, who is equipped to, particularly these children are, what, some 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, 11 years old? These are children who actually, and the state signs off on this by having public schools make this decision, the state or the local community, the funders of the school board and the state education commission is on board for this thing called social transitioning to happen?
Yes. And this is shocking to discover. It has actually been going back for a decade. You can look at the National Guidance Counselors Association. They issued guidance in 2016 saying that all guidance counselors should affirm gender transition for young people, which basically just means go along with what the kid says. If the kid comes in and says that they are a boy and they're a girl, you have to start saying they're a boy. All kinds of crazy things can result from this.
What is the professional, hang on, ho. What is the professional training of a guidance counselor in a school? I mean, do you have like an education? You have a bachelor's in education, which, I don't want to upset the people in education, but it's not looked exactly as the toughest curriculum on college campuses, and not a lot of the brightest people go into that. You're telling me a guidance counselor can actually make a decision on this?
Yeah, so this is a pretty interesting situation. Guidance counselors can do it. You also have teachers can go along with this. They've all been indoctrinated in graduate schools of education to go along with this kind of thing. And if you look at the curriculum that is being taught, you have kids in kindergarten being taught that you can change sex if you want to. You have kids in preschool being taught this. You have kids all in elementary school being asked what their pronouns are. There are detailed, exhaustive curriculums that are designed for ages, pre-K through high school as to how teachers should teach gender identity. It's exhaustive. I mean, it's hard to even fathom how deeply ingrained this is in our educational system. Schools are instructed to go along with it. Schools are instructed to affirm, to change pronouns, to change names, and in many cases to keep this secret from parents. This has happened repeatedly across the country, not just in places like New York or Massachusetts or California, but in Texas, in Florida, in Wisconsin. This is happening in Ohio and Indiana. It's happening in Idaho. It's literally all of the places in the country. All of these teachers have gone to the same graduate schools of education where they learned how to be gender identity indoctrinators. It's extremely pervasive. And once you start digging into it, you realize that it's been going on for decades. This has been almost planned very insidiously. So yes, you have guidance counselors affirming. You have the National Association, National Education Association. You can
hang on 1 second. I want to go to another aspect. No, your knowledge of this is great, and that's what we want to make sure, because this is a journey we're just starting. I want to make sure we teach, nomenclature, critical path process, so people can get their own mind map when they're thinking about things, make their own decisions. Before I go to the attorney, Mike Dwan, I just want to ask you one other thing about your reporting. You said a nurse practitioner authorized or recommended and authorized certain drugs, which she said was, or he or she said was reversible.
That's right.
Since when did nurse practitioners start making those types of decisions that have such impact on people's health? Is that a normal thing that a nurse practitioner can just recommend puberty blockers, which I assume is not as easy to reverse as at least she's alleged to have said?
Right. So they are not exactly as easy to reverse. And you hear other doctors saying this. I don't know how nurse practitioners got in the position where they're the ones telling you to drug your children with substances that can cause sterility, that can stunt their growth, that the FDA has even said can cause brain swelling and vision loss, that the manufacturer themselves have said no one should be taking for more than 3 months. These are drugs that were designed to treat prostate cancer. They are drugs that are used to chemically castrate sex offenders. They are used to treat endometriosis and something called precocious puberty, but they are not intended to stop puberty or to be used for the purpose of treating gender dysphoria. But there they are. I talked to another nurse at Golisano Children's Hospital that for the reporting, who said that they don't like to keep children on these drugs for years on end, but that kids do go on them for long stretches of time, upwards of 6 months, that you could get a shot of puberty blockers that last 6 months.
This is insanity. Hang on for 1 second, Libby. Amazing reporting. Let's go to the lawyer, Mike Dwan. Mike, I don't think, when I read Libby's reporting, I thought I was reading a Kafka short story. This is Kafka-esque. It's almost like this father is in this never-ending nightmare that he just kind of stumbled into, and now it's almost impossible. It feels like it's almost impossible for him to reverse any of this. Can you give us some details of the father and how this happened? Was the father and the mother didn't communicate, or did the mother hide things from him? I mean, how did this get into a situation that so much of this happened before he really understood it? And then when he tried to understand it, you got the state really coming in here in some sort of Orwellian way and just, demanding that they came and talk to their child about this.
Yeah, so it came as a surprise to my client in the sense that, he never envisioned his daughter going down this path, nor did he envision his wife supporting it. But it seems like what happened here is that the mother in this situation, for whatever reason, she craves the attention that she is receiving as a result of her child going through this. So in other words, there's social media pages where the mother is sort of documenting the child's transition. And of course, those social media pages are garnering attention and support, and that's added to the momentum of this. And so I hate to say this, but I think there may be some mental illness on the part of the mother here, in the sense that she is encouraging the child to move in this direction. The child is receiving acclamation and attention from social media. The child is also receiving attention in school and from the children at school. And so it's really a recipe for disaster in that we're pushing all the buttons that children crave.
But have you?
What Libby was
Mike,
saying,
has your client? Yeah, has your client though sat down? The adults, at least the adults, and the people that should be in charge of her development, of the little child's development, are the parents. Did the parents communicate about this, or is this something that? And then to get the courts involved, and it looks like the courts block any kind of involvement either.
Yeah, so the parents very quickly came to an impasse. And the problem for my client is that because he's not on the supposedly politically correct side of this conversation, he's being labeled as a bigot, he's being labeled as ignorant, he's being labeled as chauvinistic, when none of those terms applies to him whatsoever. He's a great dad, he's a very hardworking guy, and he's a pretty good husband on top of it.
How did the courts get involved? And these measures, at least reported by Libby, seem fairly draconian. Like the father can't even have any say-so. He's blocked from even talking about it. Did I read that correctly?
Well, it's part of a divorce. And so this issue is essentially being litigated as part and parcel of a divorce proceeding through the auspices of custody and also of the authority to make medical decisions on behalf of a child. So seemed headed for a divorce in any of but as part of the divorce, this issue has come to a head. And the father is unwilling to just give up his rights to make medical decisions. It's very normal for the courts to institute a gag order where they forbid both parents from speaking in disparaging ways about each other or from talking about certain topics that are at issue in the litigation itself. So what the court has done is somewhat normal. The one step that does seem a little bit absurd is that my client is now forced to call his child by the preferred male name, which it has been difficult for him to adjust to. But as far as
you're telling me a family court has decreed that the father must refer to the daughter by her new name?
That's correct, and even in the court pleadings, it has been forbidden to use the child's birth name.
By the way, you said the father was a good father and a good husband, but clearly, according to the wife, he ain't that good a husband. They're getting divorced, right? So I mean, whether he's a good husband or not is determined, I guess, by the outcome of the divorce. But the wife certainly didn't think so. Correct? She's the one initiating proceedings. I take it.
She did, but it seems that this particular issue was the straw that broke the camel's back, and so my client's unwilling to go along with his wife's intentions here seems to have been the major that led to the filing for divorce.
Okay. By the way, you said earlier you think the wife has mental illness, but there's no records of that. You guys haven't had any tests. That's just your observation, correct?
Well, I do know for a fact that she's prescribed quite a bit of medication. I don't have her medical records, and I don't have any official diagnosis in my possession.
Fine. It's just an observation. Okay. Now, what, Libby? Where's this story proceeding? You cover this. You cover these things in depth. Where are we in this story, and where's it going to proceed?
I'm not sure what could happen. In many cases across the U.S., what has happened is that the parent who does not want the child to be medically transitioned loses, and the child ends up being medically transitioned. We saw this in Texas. We've seen it in California. We've seen it in other places. This happens in in Canada with frequency, there are some things that need to be considered, which is that the Biden administration has issued a ban on conversion therapy. There's a ban on conversion therapy here in New York. What this means, however, is not just as regards sexual orientation, but it also means that mental health professionals cannot tell someone who is a girl who says she is a boy that perhaps she is really a girl, and there's nothing wrong with that. I actually called State Senator Brad Hoylman yesterday, who proposed this law in New York and got it passed, the conversion therapy ban a few years ago. And I asked his staffers if this conversion therapy ban applied to medical professionals as well as mental health professionals. And they were very clear that they did not actually know. What that was. The Biden administration, too. I wonder if they even know what this means and what the fallout of this could be. So you do have hospitals who say that they are affirming, meaning that they will not go against the child's wishes. You have legal professionals who, under their own set of penalties, say that, they are sorry about that, say that they are, going to affirm the child as well. So it's actually, I don't know what could happen. Anything really could happen. And that's why I like to write about these things and call the public's attention to it, because I think that parents' opinions do matter, parents' rights do matter, and that it's really important that everyone know what's going on.
Mike Dwan, for the legal perspective, what's the next steps for this father, or are there any next steps? It seems like it's kind of the momentum is on the side of the mom and the little girl. So where does it go from here?
Well, inevitably, we're going to have a hearing to determine two things. Number one, whether my client should have joint custody, which under any normal circumstances, he would definitely receive joint custody. And number two, my understanding is that if exclusive custody is not awarded to the wife, that the wife's attorney intends to run a hearing to try to show that my client is an unfit parent and therefore should be deprived of his authority to make medical decisions. I do not believe that they will be successful in either of those endeavors. And we're going to litigate this thing very hard.
How soon will that all take place?
Well, we have a scheduling order that takes us into early 2003 as far as resolving all issues, but that trial order might be adjusted. My understanding is that the judge that's currently presiding is likely to retire on January 1st.
Yeah. How do people get to you to find out more about this case?
Well, number one, my client has a fundraising site set up with Give, Send, Go, and the code for his particular fund site is G6HN. And really, I think that the best source of information so far has been Libby. Her reporting is fantastic. I think she knows more about this topic than just about anyone.
Quite amazing. Mike Dwan, thank you very much. Libby, how do people get to you on social media and at Post-Millennial to follow this? Because the story is quite unbelievable, and you know a ton about it.
This story and other stories about what's going on in the whole gender situation, letting our kids grow up, can be found at thepostmillennial.com. We do reporting on this most days of the week, as well as other great reporting. I'm on Twitter at Libby Emmons, and I'm also on Truth Social at Libby Emmons. And you can find me in both of those places. Thank you so much, Steve.
Libby, thanks for coming on. Great job over Post-Millennial and all the work you do with Human Events Daily and Jack Posobiec and the whole team. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Okay, let me go to Brandon Showalter of the Christian Post. And Brandon, I'm going to hold you through the break. Most of our audience's head is blowing up right now. But you kind of cover this beat every day. So the question just for you, how does a nurse practitioner, before we go to break in a minute, how does a nurse practitioner make such a fundamental and huge decision like that about a young child?
Your guess is as good as mine, Steve. You would think that there would be some kind of safeguards or professional standards by which a doctor would have to do something so drastic. Not in this space. We really are the wild, wild west here in the United States with this gender medicalization.
But Brandon, as you showed, these are fundamental decisions made by being made around or by small children. I'm not even saying a doctor. I'm saying you might have to go to a board. You might have to go to some sort of authority and make the case and have the advocacy system. We have an advocate. We have an advocacy adversarial system here in the United States. It's called English common law. And it seems to me that you would want to have kind of an adversarial situation where somebody was playing the devil's advocate, playing the counterparty to make the case. I mean, to have a nurse practitioner begs the thing, should even have a doctor, shouldn't even go beyond a doctor, and the doctor make a recommendation, the board has to see it. I tell you what, Brandon, I got a bunch of questions on this. We're going to take a short commercial break. Brandon Showalter from the Christian Post, also from this letter that went to Merrick Garland. We want to have Brandon weigh in on all of this. Short commercial break. We're going to be back in War Room Battleground in just a moment.
War Room Battleground with Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, welcome back. You're in the Battleground. We've got a couple of contestants, people that are fighting very hard out in California, Arizona, in congressional races. Eli Crane and Pete Hernandez are going to join us in a moment. I got to go back to Brandon Showalter of the Christian Post. Let's talk about this letter first. Tell me about this letter that went, a quite threatening letter, I think, that went from the American Pediatric Association, AMA, went to Merrick Garland. And is it a threat to journalists like yourself? Is it a threat to War Room? Is it a threat to parents? What are they asking for? And what are they calling disinformation?
This was a letter from the AMA, and it was signed by the American Academy of Pediatrics and the Children's Hospital Association, I believe, asking the Department of Justice and big tech companies to crack down on journalists such as myself and anybody else who scrutinizes this experimental gender medicalization in light of what has been exposed recently with what Matt Walsh has done with Vanderbilt Hospital, Boston Children's Hospital, which we've talked about several times, Steve, where it's been irrefutably proven that they have, for example, cut the breasts off of minor girls, 65 of them from 2017 to 2020. I've documented this extensively. The letter is asking them under disinformation to investigate, prosecute, and censor, in the case of big tech companies, journalists who are spreading this dangerous medical misinformation. And they're doing that under this guise of what threats that have been called in apparently to these children's hospitals. And again, I condemn any and all threats that are being called in if they really are. The one over at Boston was a false alarm. But yes, they can't handle the truth getting out there, and they're calling it disinformation. And so now they're trying to get the government and other big entities to take action against those of us who dare to put our heads above the parapet and say, no, you can't disfigure children in this way. This is wrong.
Has anybody come back and shown that anything that you've reported and all your links and everything that you've put forward, is any of it misinformation, much less disinformation is when you knowingly take bad information and spin it into a lie. Misinformation, I take it as be when you were inadvertently doing it. But has anybody ever found anything that you put up that was not 100% accurate, sir?
I think what they're doing is ignoring me, but the answer to your question is no. And all I'm doing is quoting them in their own words. So if they're going to call my reporting misinformation or disinformation, I'm just citing the articles where they themselves have said that they do this to children. So I just hold the mirror up.
The deplatforming and having big tech coming from the censorship is obviously a big deal. But the bigger deal is they actually call for prosecution.
Yes.
Criminal prosecution. This is not civil, criminal prosecution. Under what items, or how would you be criminally prosecuted for the work you're doing at the Christian Post in exposing this based upon links that go back to facts of what they've actually done?
I don't know what they're doing. For me, I think it's a scare tactic, and it's just more gaslighting. There's going to be a rally outside the American Academy of Pediatrics conference in Anaheim this weekend, where pediatricians are meeting. And very recently, they've been trying to sort of cover their tracks and hem and haw about Well, our policies about gender affirmation or whatever have never been about pushing children into drugs and surgeries. They're totally speaking out of both sides of their mouths, trying to make it seem like something. Meanwhile, they are an ideologically captured organization, as are many medical groups that mainstream, like the Endocrine Society or the Pediatric Endocrine Society. All of these professional groups, like what you were talking about, Libby, in the first segment with the guidance counselors, all of the ideological capture has taken place with brutal speed across the professions. And so they're now now that there is a critical mass rising of people who are exposing the truth of what's been going on within these prominent institutions and children's hospitals, they're pulling what we call a CYA and trying to make it sound like, oh, well, we never really did this, and now they're sending these threatening letters just to try and scare us. They don't have a leg to stand on because we've got the receipts. They have themselves admitted that they do this to children. And a lot of this is very exhibitionist. These doctors that do this post on social media that they're cutting up children and cut the breasts off troubled teen girls. It's not in dispute. The pictures don't lie. Neither do the journal articles. It's right there.
Brandon, the story from Libby is very disturbing. Your reporting is always accurate, but very disturbing. We're going to have you back on, talk about ideological capture and how it happens so quickly. But between now and then, social media, Christian Post, how do people? And let me say this: I strongly recommend that you follow Christian, or you follow Showalter at the Christian Post, and you follow Libby. But you better have a strong stomach. This is not talking about capital markets. This is not talking about geopolitics. This is talking about something that's almost very hard to comprehend. But it's happening, and it's happening in American courts and American hospitals by guidance counselors and schools, all of it. So it's very disturbing. How do people follow you, Brandon?
You can follow me at thechristianpost.com. My Twitter handle is Brandon M Show, and I agree with you about Libby's reporting. And I can just say that I have also spoken with that father that she mentioned. I would ask everyone to consider contributing to his crowdfunder, because when he spoke to me, he was not at the point ready to go on the record yet, and he had also been talking to Libby at that same time, but I can certainly verify his story. Parents are being put through a meat grinder. This is a nightmarish, exquisite form of torture when this invades a home. It's a financial hurricane. There isn't a single area of your life that isn't ruined when this kind of monstrous madness, stomach-turning sickness invades your life. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy.
I agree 1,000%. Brandon, thank you. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you,
like I said,
Steve.
it's Kafkaesque. You read these stories, you can't even it's hard to get your head around it. Let's go. We're going to talk to two gentlemen now. They're in tough races, but these guys are warriors. Let me go to Eli Crane first, out in Arizona. Eli, I want to be very specific. Your opponent, I think he tweeted out something the other day, and this was the very first fissure in the breaking of the Democratic Party. He was calling for help. He was saying, I think the DNCC has been backing the wrong candidates. He's in a fight with you, but the only way he's going to beat you, he needs more resources. And he was calling him out. What is going on in your race, and what type of pressure are you putting on this incumbent?
Well, thanks for having me on, Steve. You guys have been so great on the War Room here, and I also want to give a shout-out to the War Room posse for being so supportive of this race and other MAGA candidates around the country. So we are running against probably the most vulnerable Democrat in the entire country, and he knows it, and he's scared. And that's why he's resulted to lying about me. And clearly, Steve, this is par for the course. This is what they're doing. One of the attack ads on me even says that I supported a white supremacist. And if you read the DCCC's Oppo book on me, the white supremacist was no other than Candace Owens. And Candace Owens had said something about, I don't know, Hitler at some time. I don't know what she said, what it was taken out of context, but it just goes back to the theme that these people cannot be honest about anything. They have to be extremely deceptive. They can't be honest about what's going on at the border. They cannot be honest about what's going on in our economy. They cannot be honest about what's going on with renewable energy or our energy independence in this country. They cannot be honest about what's going on in our neighborhoods as they speak of defunding the police. They can't be honest about anything, Steve. And that's why this show is so important, because as you say all the time, It's signal, not noise. It's not happy talk. And Americans are thirsty for it, and they can't get it many other places.
A lot of folks in your district have traditionally been Democrats since they're kind of cradle Democrats, right? It's passed on from parent to child. Where's the district right now? Given that Metro Phoenix, the most important city in the state, or the biggest city, has got the worst inflation in the country. Where are these more traditional Democrats and independents of just where their lived experience is right now? What are their lives like under this Democratic regime, Eli?
Well, it's pretty brutal. I believe it's pretty brutal countrywide, Steve. And my district is a very rural district. It's a very large district. So if you're looking at a map, you're looking at Flagstaff, Sedona. You're looking at Prescott Valley, Pine Top, Show Low. It's beautiful country. We have the Grand Canyon. It goes all the way up to the Four Corners. And these are just good American, hardworking people. And the only flipping that you're seeing is watching Democrats flip towards us, because the party that they once knew and the party of their parents has gone so radical, as you show on this show all the time, with the Hispanic voters and even many of the voters out here in this district. They just cannot go along with it anymore. And so if we have, Steve, I'm going to tell you this right now, brother, if we have free and fair and transparent elections out here in Arizona, you are going to see an awesome outcome for our side of the aisle.
Are you pretty excited about President Trump's coming out this week for this rally? How excited are folks about this?
They're always excited about seeing the commander-in-chief, the one that we love and respect, the one that, actually kept the promises that he made. And that's so rare. And they love President Trump. We're excited about it. We love the fact that he's made Arizona a focal point. We love the fact that you've made Arizona a focal point. We've got an amazing slate of Republican candidates running here in Arizona. And again, Steve, that is why, whether they're talking about Kerry Lake, Blake Masters, Eli Crane, Abe Hamadeh, it's always the same. These guys are radicals. They're white supremacists. They cannot debate us on the issues because they know they're on the wrong side of the ball on every single one of them. And so do the people of this state.
I keep saying that you're going to see this inflection point when the Democrats turn on each other. I think O'Halloran, what was his tweet was, hey, this guy's going to beat me, or I can beat this guy, but I need help. And if you don't bring help, you've put your money to too many other candidates and spread it out. Are they now turning on each other as the Eli Cranes? Because you're relentless. I know you. You'll never give up. You're a fighter to the end. Are they just scared to death that you keep coming and he needs massive outside resources to try to beat you?
Yeah, that's exactly it, Steve. And that's what they've been able to do. They've been able to outraise and outspend every candidate. And as you're seeing around the country now, as people wake up, it's not working anymore. And you're also seeing, the Democratic Party, spread their resources too thin. And some of these, the old guard like Tom O'Halloran knows he's in trouble because he cannot beat us in a fair race. He knows it. He knows the demographics have changed. He knows the pulse of this state have changed. And he knows if he can't raise enough money to spread enough lies and misinformation about me, he cannot hold on to this seat.
Eli, how do people find out more about you going around, where they can meet you, the town halls, everything you're doing to get out in the district? And then how can they find out more about you if they're so inclined to donate to your cause?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Steve. EliForArizona.com is the website. We've got some real hitters coming into Arizona to help us campaign. We're going to be with Ted Cruz tonight in Tucson. In a couple weeks, sir, we're going to be with Jim Jordan's coming out to help us campaign. We're going to have Congressman Paul Gosar there, probably Congressman Andy Biggs. We're going to have 3 members of the Freedom Caucus coming out to help me beat Tom O'Halloran. And I pledge on your show right now, Steve, I've been saying it the whole time on the campaign trail, if I get an opportunity to represent this district, brother, I am joining that Freedom Caucus because I believe they're the most proactive group on Capitol Hill, and we're going to be playing offense, brother.
Eli, keep fighting on. You're amazing, and the audience absolutely loves you. The War Room Posse always had your back. Thank you, Eli, for taking time away from your campaign to call in.
Thank you, sir.
Let's go to another fighter. Pete, thanks, brother. Pete Hernandez out in California. You got Tom O'Halloran barely hanging on in Arizona, and you got another old bull, Zoe Lofgren, barely hanging on from the relentless onslaught of Brother Hernandez. Tell us about the race, sir.
Thank you for having me back, Steve. Thank you. As you can see, I'm hot on the campaign trail. We're working really hard. Like you mentioned, Zoe Lofgren, my opponent, she's running out of gas as far as I could see. We just want to retire her and send her home. She can't keep up. At the end of the day, we're targeting every area of this district. We're talking to Latino voters. We're very focused. These Latino voters, like I said before, in previous segments, they're ready to flip. They're tired of the breakdown of our country. They're tired of inflation, the gas prices, their inability basically to control their when it comes to their parents. When it comes to their children, you're just seeing so much breakdown that you end up having these voters basically, once I'm out there talking to them, they're engaging me and they're very interested in seeing how there's going to be a new fresh face in Congressional District 18. A lot of people don't realize she's not an incumbent for this district. It's a brand new district, 74 years old. She's not going to be able to keep up with trying to get to know a brand new district. And I keep seeing that she's running out of energy because her presence is not felt in this district.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The people in the district ask, she's all over MSNBC and CNN, but really MSNBC, almost like a contributor on the J6 committee. Does that relate to the people's lived experience of their lives right now in the district, given inflation, given what's happening in the schools, what's happening in the southern border? How does she connect with them when she's like a spokesman for the J6 committee?
She's as disconnected as it gets from this district. The voters themselves don't even know who she is, and when I've talked to the voters, they're talking to me about real issues, right? They're talking about inflation. They're talking about being able to pass on to their next generation a country that they love, that they found themselves to fall in love with. Even the Latino immigrant, we actually have a game plan to talk about immigration, to talk about the issues that matter, and not run away from them. And I think that's what's happening with Democrat parties, Zoe Lofgren, people that don't have a focus and energy, is they're running away from the issues. They're not talking about the issues. Why? Because they know they have to own the consequences of their bad decision making. And that's where I come in. I'm ready to talk honest and openly about the issues, and ultimately for us to have a plan to solve these issues, right? And that's what we're doing. And that's where people are getting, they see obviously my age. I'm hungry. I'm young. I'm hungry. I'm ready to work. And they're excited to hear from me.
Pete, people around the country, when you come on, ask me and say, hey, look, he's fantastic. He's got energy. He's got ideas. He obviously connects with people. He's a people person. But that California is so far gone, and so many things Newsom and the senior leadership in the Democratic Party have done, this whole madness on energy, what they're doing now with, just across the board, sanctuary, transgender sanctuary state, abortion sanctuary state. Are the voters, even the independents and moderate Democrats, are they so conditioned by what's been happening in the state that it's going to be impossible in a congressional election to try to flip those to support a MAGA or a conservative Republican candidate?
You're talking about, to me, Steve, the issues of lack of engagement and education. In general, people know that there's issues. They don't understand how these issues are happening. So basically there's no education, there's no engagement, there's no interest in getting the Latino voter, the majority of the district, to understand the issues. And that's where I come in. So yeah, at the end of the day, it's only Democrat because of the fact that there's such a disconnect between the leadership and the people themselves, right? They don't have these ongoing conversations. They just basically have unions and all these other organizations to basically tell them how to vote, right? It's almost become a cultural phenomenon just to vote that way, because that's just an affiliation they've had since for years now. But once you start to talk about the breakdown, how it's happening, why it's happening, you connect the dots for them, they're very excited. I actually have a simple experience where I was literally in a Latino majority Democrat portion of the district in Salinas, we had a meeting. They were wondering about this homeless situation, how all of a sudden there was a hotel bought by the city council for them to start these wraparound services. And so I just went in and just educated them on what happened, where the breakdown was. And all of a sudden they're connecting the dots and they're saying, hey, so why didn't we get this told by our own city council members? And it's like, because to a certain extent, they might get pushback, right? And that's what they don't want. But that's the reality of broken top-down government. That's why I automatically articulate bottom up. We need to educate you, teach you civics, agree, ultimately have a succession plan for someone to come in and be able to, the next generation to come into leadership and have these fresh new ideas for us to be able to replace the old government, right? That's why you have so many people like Nancy Pelosi, Dianne Feinstein, Zoe Lofgren, Joe Biden, all of them are the same like, that are basically, they're in there for power, right? They're in there for control. They're not in there for solutions. And that's why I come in and say, look, I'm willing to agree to term limits. I'm willing to agree for us to change things where we know that, the decisions we're going to make are consistent with the needs and the interest of the district itself. And they get excited when they hear these things.
Pete, how can people find out more about your campaign, particularly if they want to support it, find out more about you if they want to volunteer?
So we're at the final stretch. We could use a whole lot more money. We appreciate all your support. HernandezForCongress.com, HernandezForCongress.com. You vote Peter Hernandez into Congress, I guarantee you we will be fighting hard. I will also be joining the Freedom Caucus. I will make sure that we're on a proactive approach. Wow. Offense is the best strategy, not defense, right? The best defense, technically in that sense, is a great offense, and that's what I'm ready to do once I get elected.
Pete, continue to fight on. Amazing race out there. You've actually got, everybody tells me in Washington, she's very, very concerned about you, particularly your engagement with the Hispanic community. So thank you very much. Okay, back here tomorrow morning at 10 a.m., and we are going to be on fire. A full day of interesting guests and talking about analytics, polling, what's going to happen on November 8th, all in the War Room. See you tomorrow morning at 10.